Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Victor reveals Kane's shady money, and Lily believes that Holden is lying. The Young and the Restless spoilers for Monday, August 25th, reveal that Victor Newman will expose Kane Ashby's dirty money while Lily Winters suspects Holden Novak is lying. For starters, Kane will have another meeting with Victor, who'll make some shocking accusations. It turns out that Victor will claim to be aware of Colin Atkinson's most recent great fraud and will suggest that Kane has been purchasing properties with shady money. Of course, Kane may defend his late father, who supposedly turned things around toward the end of his life. Colin spent decades running scams and chasing after shady paydays, so he wanted to help Kane build a legitimate empire before his passing. Kane thinks he was able to do that with Colin's help, but Victor seems to act like Colin was still the same con artist, even though he said he had changed. Will Victor have evidence to back up these dirty money accusations? Even if he does, Kane might act like it's fabricated and struggle to believe what Victor's telling him. Other Y&R spoilers say Lily will be determined to learn the extent of Kane's plans in Genoa City. Kane still hasn't told Lily what his full agenda looks like, so Lily will decide maybe Holden knows more than he's letting on. Once Lily finds Holden in the park, she'll put him through a grilling session. Lily will plead for the truth, but Holden will insist he's out of the loop when it comes to Kane's complete plot. Although Lily will have a hard time buying that, Holden will promise he doesn't know the details. Holden is working for Kane and doing what he's told, but his boss is playing things close to the vest for now. Since she will undoubtedly not receive the meaty updates she desires, Lily will end this conversation frustrated. Phyllis Summers is Kane's right-hand woman these days, so Lily might try pumping her for the latest news eventually. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Kane will deal with more hurdles when it comes to all the takeovers he's got cooking up, so stay tuned. Victor Newman's piercing gaze bore into Kane Ashby as the mogul leaned back in his sleek office chair, the weight of authority in his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Kane, I know exactly what you've been doing," Victor declared, his tone dripping with menace and certainty. Kane froze mid-step, adjusting his tie as if it were a flimsy shield against the storm of accusations coming his way. Victor's eyes, sharp and calculating as ever, were unyielding. He continued without giving Kane a chance to reply. "I'm aware of Colin Atkinson's latest schemes, and somehow, your name is all over the properties he's been buying with questionable funds. You can deny it, but the paper trail doesn't lie." The accusation felt like a punch to the gut, though Kane's instinctive defense mechanism kicked in immediately. He straightened, attempting a controlled composure, a mixture of indignation and disbelief coursing through his veins. "Victor, my father, Colin, he had changed. In his final years, he tried to make things right, to build a legitimate empire, and I thought I was helping him see it through. He wasn't the same man who spent decades running cons and chasing shady paydays," Kane insisted, his voice laced with both frustration and sorrow, the memory of his father's complicated legacy lingering heavily in his mind. Yet Victor wasn't swayed. "Kane, do not play the grieving son with me. Colin may have claimed to change, but I know better. He never left his ways behind, and the money you're moving, it reeks of the same con artistry. You may want to believe it's clean, but actions speak louder than promises." Kane's stomach twisted as he considered the weight of Victor's claims, his mind racing to construct defenses, to remember every transaction, every property acquisition, and every conversation with his father. Could it be possible that he was naive, that in his eagerness to preserve the Ashby legacy, he had inadvertently become tangled in more than just his father's past misdeeds? Kane wrestled with the thought, wanting desperately to cling to the hope that Victor's accusations were exaggerated, fabricated perhaps, the type of wild conjecture Victor was known for when testing those around him. Still, doubt crept in, threading its way through Kane's confidence, making him question not only his father's intentions but also his own judgment. He opened his mouth to respond again, ready to protest his innocence, to highlight every legitimate move he had made to establish a credible empire in Genoa City, but Victor held up a hand, signaling Kane to stop. The weight of Victor's authority, combined with the meticulous precision of his accusations, left Kane momentarily speechless, a rare occurrence for a man so accustomed to commanding rooms, steering mergers, and handling crises with ease. Meanwhile, Across town in the quiet expanse of the Genoa City Park, Lily Winters was pacing with a determination that could rival any investigative journalist's drive. Her mind, naturally attuned to detecting deception, had been buzzing ever since she learned of Kane's latest maneuvers, and the gaps in information gnawed at her relentlessly. Kane had always been cautious, methodical, and secretive when it came to his grand schemes, but this time, Lily sensed there were layers she wasn't seeing, truths withheld with calculated precision. She knew that Holden Novak, Kane's trusted operative, might be holding the key to understanding the full breadth of Kane's plans. When she finally spotted Holden seated on a park bench, nervously flipping through a dossier, she didn't hesitate. She approached swiftly, her presence commanding immediate attention. Holden looked up, a faint trace of apprehension in his eyes, and Lily wasted no time cutting to the chase. "Holden, I need to know everything. I need the truth about what Kane's really doing. Don't give me half-truths or vague reassurances. I want the whole story," she demanded, her voice both firm and pleading, a delicate balance of trust and suspicion. Holden's reaction was measured, his demeanor guarded, as though he had anticipated this confrontation but hoped to deflect it with minimal disclosure. "Lily, I swear, I don't know the full extent. Kane's keeping things close to the vest. I do what he asks, but he hasn't shared all the details with me," Holden said, his words carefully chosen to project honesty without revealing more than he was supposed to. Lily's eyebrows knitted together in disbelief. Her instincts screamed that Holden was withholding crucial information, that his words were a facade meant to placate rather than inform. She leaned closer, her eyes searching his for a crack in the armor, a tell that would betray deception. "Holden, come on. You've been with Kane long enough to know something. You can't tell me you don't have insight into his schemes. I need specifics. I need to understand the risks, the takeovers, the acquisitions, everything," she pressed, her voice escalating in intensity, blending frustration with desperation. Holden's hands tightened around the dossier, and he shifted uncomfortably. "Lily, believe me, I wish I could tell you more, but I genuinely don't have the details. He's cautious, and for now, I'm just following orders," he insisted, the defensiveness in his tone betraying the tension he felt under her scrutiny. Lily exhaled sharply, the frustration building inside her like a storm on the horizon. She knew that waiting for Kane to disclose his intentions voluntarily was a luxury she couldn't afford. Kane's ambitions in Genoa City were growing, each move more complex than the last, and the possibility of unforeseen consequences was too great to ignore. Her mind immediately turned to other sources of insight. Phyllis Summers, Kane's right-hand woman, came to mind. Phyllis, with her intimate knowledge of Kane's strategies and her unyielding loyalty to his vision, might hold the missing pieces of the puzzle. Lily resolved that she would have to approach Phyllis, to subtly probe for details without revealing the depth of her suspicions. Meanwhile, Kane, unaware of the confrontation unfolding in the park, was preparing for his next corporate maneuver. The city's skyline, shimmering under the afternoon sun, reflected both the promise and peril of his undertakings. Each acquisition, each negotiation, each carefully orchestrated move was a test of his ability to balance ambition with integrity, legacy with opportunity. But Victor's accusations hung over him like a storm cloud, threatening to cast shadows over every effort. Kane found himself pacing the length of his office, considering every meeting, every transaction, every conversation he'd had with his late father, Colin. He replayed their exchanges, dissected intentions, and questioned motives, desperately seeking evidence to refute Victor's claims. Could it be possible that he had misread Colin's final years? Could Colin's attempts at legitimacy have been another layer of deception, a final con to secure Kane's complicity? The thought gnawed at him, challenging not only his understanding of his father but also the foundation upon which he had built his empire. And yet, Kane's resolve was not easily shattered. He was determined to prove both Victor and anyone else wrong, to demonstrate that his vision for Genoa City was genuine, legitimate, and independent of any past misdeeds. He would confront the allegations with evidence, strategy, and, if necessary, legal counsel. Kane's inner monologue was a whirlwind of possibilities, potential pitfalls, and calculated responses. Every step he considered was weighed against the risk of public scandal, corporate fallout, and personal betrayal. The stakes were higher than ever, And the pressure was compounded by the uncertainty surrounding Holden's knowledge, Lily's suspicions, and Phyllis' loyalty. The interplay between these forces created a volatile environment, where each decision could reverberate across Genoa City's elite circles. Lily, returning to her thoughts on Holden, recognized that patience and strategy were her allies. Confronting Kane directly was not yet an option. He was unpredictable, meticulous, and always several moves ahead. Her task was to gather information, to assemble a mosaic of truths that could guide her next actions. If she could piece together Holden's insights with Phyllis' knowledge, she might gain a clearer understanding of Kane's ultimate agenda. In the meantime, Victor, ever the strategic titan, would continue to probe, to pressure, and to unsettle. His accusations were designed not only to challenge Kane but also to test the loyalties of those around him, to see who would falter under scrutiny, and who would rise to protect or betray. Victor's awareness of Colin's past, his access to records, and his relentless pursuit of leverage meant that Kane could not simply dismiss the claims without consequences. The tension was palpable, a complex web of trust, deception, ambition, and familial legacy, all converging in a delicate balance that could tip at any moment. And as Kane prepared for further confrontations, as Lily pressed Holden for clarity, and as Victor sharpened his focus on uncovering the truth, Genoa City itself seemed to pulse with anticipation. The stage was set for revelations, confrontations, and strategic moves that would test every character's integrity, cunning, and resolve. Each player, Victor, Kane, Lily, Holden, and Phyllis, occupied a critical role in the unfolding drama, their choices intertwined in ways that would ripple far beyond a single meeting, a single accusation, or a single conversation. The stakes were monumental, legacies were at risk, reputations teetered on the edge, and the very fabric of trust within Genoa City's elite circles could unravel if the delicate balance was disturbed. Kane's empire, built with ambition, guided by a father's last-minute morality, and threatened by accusations of corruption, stood at a crossroads. Lily's quest for truth, fueled by suspicion and concern, pressed against the opaque veil of secrecy surrounding Kane's plans. Holden's position, precarious and silent, held potential keys to understanding, while Victor's relentless pursuit of accountability and leverage loomed as an ever-present shadow. And within this intricate web of personal ambition, loyalty, and deception, the city itself waited, poised for the next chapter of intrigue, revelation, and confrontation in the high-stakes saga that was The Young and the Restless. Every glance, every word, every strategic move carried weight. Kane knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, corporate, personal, and ethical. He would need allies, evidence, and unyielding determination to navigate the storm that Victor had unleashed. Lily would need patience, cunning, and discernment to extract the truth from those who might not willingly reveal it. Holden would need to navigate the fine line between loyalty and disclosure. And Victor would continue to manipulate, provoke, and demand accountability, ensuring that every player felt the pressure of their choices. The drama, suspense, and emotional stakes were at their peak, promising a week of revelations, confrontations, and strategic maneuvers that could reshape the power dynamics of Genoa City forever. As the sun dipped lower over Genoa City, the tension between Victor and Kane lingered like a storm cloud that refused to break. Kane could not shake Victor's accusations. Every word uttered in that office replayed in his mind with a relentless echo, turning what should have been a routine business day into a mental battlefield. He wandered through the halls of Newman Enterprises, the familiar sleek marble and glass architecture now feeling alien and oppressive, each reflective surface reminding him of the duality of his situation, one of legitimate ambition shadowed by suspicion of ill-gotten gains. His phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from lawyers, financial advisors, and assistants, each carrying reminders of transactions, property acquisitions, and corporate maneuvers, all of which now seemed potentially incriminating under Victor's scrutiny. He stopped for a moment, rubbing his temples, trying to trace every decision, every meeting, every email, wondering if Victor's suspicions had merit, or if this was just another test of his resilience. And yet, deep down, Kane knew that Victor's ability to gather intel was unmatched. If there was even a shadow of truth in his accusations, it would only be a matter of time before the evidence surfaced. His mind shifted uncomfortably to Colin Atkinson, the man whose shadow had loomed over him his entire adult life. Colin's manipulations, his charm, his ability to convince even the most skeptical of observers that he had changed, were now biting Kane with the ferocity of irony. He had wanted to believe, to see the good in his father's final years, to honor the man's wish to build something enduring and respectable. Now, faced with Victor's relentless pursuit, Kane questioned whether Colin had truly changed at all, or if Kane had been a pawn in a final, elaborate con, unknowingly laundering the remnants of decades of deception into properties that now seemed tainted. Meanwhile, Lily Winters refused to let the day pass without pursuing the answers she craved. After her tense exchange with Holden Novak in the park, she could not stop the questions from spinning in her mind. Holden's insistence that he knew nothing of Kane's full plan was infuriatingly vague, and Lily's intuition told her it was unlikely to be the full truth. Determined, she planned her next move, considering every avenue she could exploit to uncover Kane's intentions. She knew Phyllis Summers had insight that Holden did not, and perhaps she could leverage Phyllis' loyalty to Kane, or her competitive nature, to extract information without revealing her full hand. Lily mapped out her approach meticulously, contemplating casual conversations, probing questions disguised as curiosity, and even leveraging social events where Kane's inner circle might loosen their tongues. Each potential path carried risk. Kane was cautious, strategic, and always aware of who was observing, and Phyllis, though loyal, had her own pride and protective instincts. Yet, Lily's determination outweighed caution. If she was to understand Kane's grand strategy in Genoa City, she needed to find cracks, inconsistencies, and hints wherever they might exist. As Kane prepared for his next boardroom showdown, he was acutely aware that the landscape of the city's elite was fraught with potential threats. Victor's accusations were only the beginning, a prelude to a series of tests that would challenge every relationship, every alliance, and every assumption he had made. His phone buzzed with a message from Phyllis, concise but loaded with implications. "We need to meet. Urgent." Kane felt a knot in his stomach. Phyllis' messages rarely conveyed urgency without meaning. This could involve the property acquisitions Victor was scrutinizing, a new threat emerging from Colin's past dealings, or even a complication in one of Kane's ambitious takeovers. He called Phyllis immediately, coordinating a discreet meeting at the back of GC Buzz, her preferred neutral ground, away from prying eyes. Meanwhile, Lily's day took a tense turn when she received an unexpected tip. A well-placed informant hinted that Holden might have been present during confidential discussions regarding the acquisitions Victor had flagged. This nugget of information confirmed her suspicions that Holden knew more than he admitted. Her pulse quickened, a mix of frustration and resolve fueling her determination. She considered how best to approach Holden again without alarming him, knowing that direct confrontation might cause him to clamp down further. She rehearsed potential questions, the way her tone would shift from casual curiosity to firm insistence, and how she could read his reactions for subtle tells. Back in GC Buzz, Kane and Phyllis sat across from each other in a secluded booth, the dim lighting casting shadows over the table that seemed almost symbolic of the murky dealings they were about to discuss. Kane leaned forward, lowering his voice to a confidential murmur. "Phyllis, Victor's on my case again. He's dredging up Colin's past, questioning my acquisitions, insinuating that I'm laundering money through properties he claims are tied to my father's schemes," Kane explained, the weight of frustration palpable in his tone. Phyllis, ever the composed and shrewd strategist, listened intently, her fingers drumming lightly on the tabletop. "Victor will always dig. That's who he is," she said. "But Kane, you need to be proactive. If there's even a hint of vulnerability, he'll exploit it. We need to shore up your defenses, double-check the legality of every transaction, and ensure that every acquisition is airtight." Kane nodded, appreciating her counsel, yet a shadow of doubt lingered. Could they truly anticipate Victor's next move? Could they prepare for the depth of scrutiny he might bring? And what about Holden? Kane asked cautiously, his thoughts momentarily drifting to the young operative who had seemed evasive in his conversation with Lily. "He's following your orders, but are there gaps in what he knows? Could Victor use those gaps against us?" Phyllis tilted her head thoughtfully, her eyes narrowing as she considered the possibilities. "Holden is loyal, yes, but he's not a strategist. He's reactive, and if we aren't careful, his lack of insight could be leveraged by Victor, by Lily, or by anyone looking to destabilize you." Kane exhaled sharply, the tension in his chest tightening. The labyrinth of allegiances, information, and potential betrayals stretched out before him like an intricate puzzle with missing pieces. Meanwhile, Lily, armed with her tip about Holden, decided to take a subtle approach. She sent a carefully worded message inviting Holden to a casual meetup at Society, framing it as a friendly check-in. Her goal was to observe him, to probe his reactions, and to potentially extract hints of what Kane was orchestrating. When Holden arrived, his demeanor was